I've never really wanted to run a kitchen like that. I want them to feel like they're part of this restaurant. I want them to feel like they are contributing, and I want them to have a certain sense of ownership when it comes to the menu. Excuse me. So it's very much a collaborate. Like, we'll come in on Wednesdays and I'm like, okay, what ideas do you have today? What are you thinking? And they'll come to me and they're like, well, maybe this, or what about a salad like this? Or, I saw this in a book. What do you think? And so we'll start talking about this. Have to guide them a little bit. Like, oh no, I feel like these ingredients are a little bit, are screaming Asian to me. What if we change these things, make it a little bit more Spanish or Portuguese? But I don't know everything there is about Spanish and Portuguese cooking, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I do. So the more info that I can get from my staff, the better. Again, it keeps them engaged. It gives them a sense of pride. On our menu at Amalinda, we have everybody who works in the kitchen. Their name is on the menu.
Welcome to the VELSTRAT Podcast, powered by Velocity Strategics. Today, we're honored to host a true culinary visionary. He's the driving force behind Amalinda, a Milwaukee gem with an astounding 4 James Beard Award nominations. Chef Gregory, thank you for carving a slice out of your busy day for joining us. How are we doing?
I'm good. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Where are we calling from?
I'm at home right now. I haven't made it to the restaurant just yet. So I figured I would do this at home where it's a little bit more quiet. There's not 10 people asking me questions all the time. So,
of course. Okay, well, we always start at the beginning. So who's Gregory Leon the person, and what first planted the seed for you to become the acclaimed chef you are today, and ultimately to open up Amalinda?
Amalinda. Who is Gregory? Well, I was born in Oklahoma. I was the first one in my family to have been born in Oklahoma. So I thank my parents for that distinction. My dad's Venezuelan. My mother's from the Midwest. Grew up in Venezuela. I moved there when I was 5, moved back to the U.S. when I was 19. Floundered in college a little bit. Not what I wanted to do. And then in 1994, I went out to San Francisco where I started my culinary career. I worked there for 18 years. And during those 18 years, I would go off to Spain and work and hang out with my mentor, Richard Stevens, who was a chef there in Madrid. And then in 2012, I decided that I no longer wanted to be in San Francisco because it was too expensive. Was going to move to Portland, Oregon, and somehow ended up in Milwaukee and been here for 13 years now. And Amalinda just celebrated its 10th anniversary. Culinary seed. I mean, food is always something that's been interesting to me. In Venezuela, men don't normally cook if it's not on the weekend when you're barbecuing and stuff like that. But the day-to-day cooking is for women. So I didn't really have a lot of exposure to cooking growing up. Every time I would go into the kitchen, my uncles would be like, that's for women. And they would drag me out. But it was always something that interested me. I would, grab my mother's cookbooks, take them up to my bedroom and read them. But I didn't realize that it was something I could do as a career until about 1992. I was watching a show on the Discovery Channel that was called Great Chefs of the World. And it was an hour episode. It had 3 chefs. Each chef prepared a different course in their kitchen at the restaurant. The chefs didn't talk to the camera. Basically hardly even looked at the camera. There was a lady's voice, like a voiceover, very calm. She would describe what they were doing, but it wasn't the kind of show that you would watch to learn how to make something. Like, they didn't give you ratios. They didn't give you ingredients. I mean, she would list off the ingredients, but she wouldn't give you how much. It was basically just to see how things are done in a kitchen. And I remember watching that show and being like, okay, well, that's what I want to do. So 2 years later, I hopped on a bus and went out to California. And then, I ended up here in Milwaukee. Spanish and Portuguese food is always something that really interested me from an early start to my career. So rather than picking one or the other, we decided to just be inspired by the Iberian Peninsula and open Amalinda.
That's a very cool journey, Chef. So Venezuela, California, Spain, back to California, and then Milwaukee is kind of where this all transpired. So you said 10th year anniversary, earning those James Beard Award nominations. When you look at where Amalinda is today, what's the North Star? I mean, obviously the North Star might have been to open up Amalinda, but now that, for after a decade, what is the North Star for Amalinda today? What's the single guiding principle that keeps your team focused and influences your most critical decisions for the restaurant's future?
Wow. So our North Star is just always to continue serving fantastic food, having a great service, making people feel like they're at home. We've always had really great people working there, but you get a mix. You got some people that are really great, and then you got others that are like, not so great. And right now, I have to say, I have the best staff I've ever had in that restaurant. All 7 of them are just incredible human beings. And you had mentioned those 4 James Beard nominations. Those all happened after the pandemic. And it's a testament to how great my team is. I couldn't ask for a better group of people to work with every day. They're motivated and they're passionate and they care because they care, not because they're getting paid to care. My kitchen staff is all under the age of 25. So my chef de cuisine is 23. My sous chef is 21. And my chef de partie is 20. Yeah, my chef de partie is 24. And I'm very excited to see where these kids go after they've been at Amalinda for many years, because I don't plan on letting them go anywhere anytime soon. But yeah, I would say our North Star is just to, continue doing fantastic food and making people happy, and, having them come in through our doors and tell us that they feel like they're in our home, or that as soon as they walk through the door, all their stress melted away. We did a podcast, I think it was like 2 years ago, and they were doing it from the restaurant in the middle of service. And, it was packed. It was a Friday night. And one of the things, one of the gentlemen says to me, he's like, we love the space. It's beautiful. And, I walked in here. He's like, I was having a pretty bad day. And I walked in and all the stress melted away. And I'm so relaxed. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, what is that like to be in this space and not have stress? Because I don't think I've ever been in that space without, a stress. You own the restaurant. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's our North Star. I don't want to open another restaurant. I don't want to expand. I don't plan on moving to a different location. We're working on a cookbook right now, which is kind of a fun project. But other than that, it's just continue to show up every day and do the best we can with the amazing produce we get from our local farmers, and have people leave happy and feel like they got their money's worth, and just make them want to come back.
So it sounds like passion is pretty much what's the guiding principle here, Chef, of all for what you
I
have.
would
You have
say
a
that,
very
yeah.
young staff.
Yeah, they're
You know,
they're
which is
incredible.
obviously, I think it should be the goal for any kitchen, in any scenario. That's usually what makes a happy staff is a good staff. I've learned working in hospitality for a while now.
Correct. And we're humans. I own the place. And there's days when I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. But it's not because
Yeah,
I don't want to be around those people. I just don't feel like working today. And I never want them to wake up and be like, oh, I don't want to go work with this guy because he's
right.
not a very nice human being. I always want them to feel like they're, appreciated. And I like to give them credit when credit is due. I'm pretty secure in what I do and my level of talent and my cooking, and I don't have to take credit for anybody else's work. So I want to make sure that they all feel like they're getting the credit that they deserve, and they're taken care of.
Very cool, Chef. And for those listening, where can folks find Amalinda online and in Milwaukee? Where's
So
a
online, you can
good
go to
route for that?
amalinda.com, and that's AMILINDA.com. They can find us on Instagram. That's at Amalinda MKE. And then we're at 315 East Wisconsin Avenue, in the heart of downtown Milwaukee. We're on Wisconsin Avenue between Broadway and Milwaukee, at a 10-minute walk from the Art Museum, half a block away from the Fister.
Very cool. All right, so I want to make sure we get that out there so anyone in the area can check you guys out. And Chef, one thing I wanted to touch on. So you said that you get your ingredients from local farmers, and I think we touched when we had our first call that it's seasonal for as far as the ingredients that you go from the menu. That you get a little bored sometimes doing the same thing over and over. So
especially in the winter.
About that.
So our menu, I remember when I was a line cook for somebody, and most restaurants, I would say on average, change their menu every 3 months with the seasons. But, after month 2, I would get a bit bored because we're doing the same prep day in, day out. I would get bored. My mind would start wandering when I was cutting stuff. You kind of become a robot. So I wanted to avoid that for myself and for my staff. So our menu is constantly evolving. We make changes to our menu every week. Sometimes we might just change dishes completely, get a new cut of meat. Maybe it's a different dish altogether. And then sometimes we'll just tweak what we have. We'll see, okay, what do we get from the farmers today? Okay, cool. We got these great carrots. We can't get any cabbage this week, so let's change the cabbage on the rabbit for carrots. So stuff like that. But it's constantly evolving. It keeps everybody really interested. It keeps them constantly learning and reading and doing research and coming up with ideas. It keeps them engaged, and it keeps the customer coming back. It was funny because when we first opened, I think we're one of the few restaurants in Milwaukee that kind of has that model with our menu, and people would get mad. They'd come in and like, well, I was here like a month ago and I had this fish dish, and I'd be like, well, we don't have that on the menu, and they would get really angry. Now they expect it. Like if they come in 2 weeks in a row and they're like, oh, I don't see any changes, what's going on? Now that's the norm for us. And again, it just keeps everybody interested in what we're doing. We
you keep them on their toes, right?
It does. And I'm constantly asking them for like, what have you read lately? Did you go out and eat this weekend? What have you had? What are you thinking about? It keeps everybody interested. It keeps the servers also. It's not just for the kitchen. The servers are constantly learning, which, in terms of going to make them more knowledgeable and they'll be able to do a better job at what they do.
Cool. So something I've learned over time working in like Miami, I was a food runner for a while and then server and all that. Miami to New York and Vegas, and running into all the different people from those areas, especially melting pots. Like all those places are very big melting pots. But folks from certain regions like things in a certain way. There are people that are living in major cities love it when you keep it fresh. Whereas folks that are more countryside or Midwest do prefer that familiar menu and that like things to be exactly as they were the whole way.
Oh, yes.
Have you noticed that difference?
I have. It's funny.
Like in Milwaukee.
My grandparents were from Duluth, Minnesota, which is, the Midwest. And my grandfather, if my grandmother changed something on the recipe that she had, he would notice immediately and wasn't very happy. I think, I was a little concerned when we opened here in Milwaukee because, Spain uses and Portugal also uses every part of the pig. They use very interesting cuts of meat sometimes. And so I was a little concerned, like, how is a blood sausage going to, how is, kidneys going to move here? But much to my surprise, people they're willing to try just about anything when they come in Amalinda. And more often than not, we'll have customers who come in and say, I've never had tongue. I'm a big fan of tongue on the menu. Like, it's great. It's inexpensive. It's versatile. We love working with it. So it appears on our menu quite often. And I'll have people who come in and it's like, oh, I've never had this, or my grandmother used to make it and it was horrible, but I gave it a try here. And I love it. Like, you've made me a believer. So we have a lot of people who are willing to come in and try new things, which makes me super happy. And the fact that we're good enough at what we do that we get people to try new things. And then they're like, I've never had kidneys, but holy crap, I love kidneys now. That's always a good feeling when we can get people to eat, try, and actually like something they've never had before.
Yeah, you're educating them you're culturing them a little bit here.
A little bit, yeah. And it takes a lot of trust.
Chef,
for them to come in and be
all the
willing
ingredients
to try something. Sorry
about that.
That's okay.
You mentioned a couple of different ingredients, tongue, blood sausage, and all that. As a Latino out in Milwaukee, that's not something that's very common as far as the kitchens go, right?
I haven't really seen a lot of blood sausage on menus, or kidneys for that matter. I can't say that it's not served at all because I haven't been to every Latino restaurant in Milwaukee. I'm sure you can get tongue tacos, probably at just about any food cart here in town. But like, to get it as an entree, I haven't really seen it on menus. And I'll have customers tell me, oh, I've never seen this before in a restaurant. So again, we try to keep it fresh. I was talking to a customer last night. Why do what everybody else does? Why then what's the point of opening a restaurant if we're going to cook the same thing everybody else cooks?
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
Right. So, Chef, can I ask you something about your staff a little bit now?
Sure.
The collaborative approach that you have with your staff on the menu, even taking them to Lisbon for an outing, clearly speaks to that North Star. But as you know, success is never linear, especially in the restaurant world. So if you look back over the last decade with Amalinda, what is the single greatest challenge? Or let's go, what is the single greatest moment of doubt that you faced in the journey of building this business?
Well, let's be honest. There's probably been more than just one in the last 10 years. I would say getting the place off the ground was a big one. It takes a lot of money to open a restaurant. And my partner and I did not have a lot of money when we decided to do this. Much to his credit, though, we ended up opening the restaurant. He really worked his tail off to get that place open. Let's see. I would say the pandemic. It was a big one. And during that pandemic, my business partner, who happened to also be my spouse, decided that he no longer wanted to be married or be part of the restaurant. So that was a little challenging. There were moments that I would sit at, so we have a chef's counter and a bar, and I would sit at C1, which is chef's counter 1, crying because I'm like, I have no money in the bank. I don't know how I'm going to buy food for tomorrow. And I would call my friend Caitlin Cullen, who was also a chef here in Milwaukee. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to shut the restaurant down. She was like, no, you're not, because you don't want to go work for anybody else. Kudos to her for talking me off the ledge all the time. So I would say that, and then every now and then you're like, look at the bank account. And I was like, Jesus, the money's really tight right now. That's happened recently because of the price of everything has gone up, and especially the imported products that we use from Spain and Portugal due to the tariffs have almost doubled in price. So, there's still moments where I'm like, what are we doing? But the doubt never comes from a place where I'm like doubting what I can do as a chef or what my staff can do. I've never doubted them and how great they are. So I would say, like, opening the place, there was a little bit of doubt, and then during the pandemic, but we chin up, face forward. We managed to get through all of that. You talked about the approach in the kitchen. Most restaurants still to this day, even with all the changes that have happened in the industry, it's kind of like it's obviously a hierarchy. You're the chef, and all the ideas come from the chef all the way down, and then they're distilled, and then the staff is the one that does them and executes them. I've never really wanted to run a kitchen like that. I want them to feel like they're part of this restaurant. I want them to feel like they are contributing, and I want them to have a certain sense of ownership when it comes to the menu. Excuse me. So it's very much a collaborate. We'll come in on Wednesdays and I'm like, okay, what ideas do you have today? What are you thinking? And they'll come to me and they're like, well, maybe this, or what about a salad like this, or I saw this in a book. What do you think? And so we'll start talking about this. Have to guide them a little bit. Like, oh no, I feel like these ingredients are a little bit, are screaming Asian to me. What if we change these things, make it a little bit more Spanish or Portuguese? But I don't know everything there is about Spanish and Portuguese cooking, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I do. So the more info that I can get from my staff, the better. And, again, it keeps them engaged. It gives them a sense of pride. On our menu at Amalinda, we have everybody who works in the kitchen, their name is on the menu. It's a lot easier. There's only four
Cool.
of us, obviously, but still, my name, Chef de Cuisine, sous chef, and Chef de Partie's name is on the menu. And, the first time we just started doing that, maybe about 6 months ago. My name and the sous chef's name has always been on there. But about 6 months ago, I was like, you know what? Let's put everybody's name on there, and like the face, like, oh, this is my first time having my name on a menu, and those little things really go a long way. Again, I don't know
Huge sense of
everything.
pride you're instilling there, chef.
Yeah, I want them. I want them to be proud of what they do. I want them to wake up every morning, and even though they might have a day where they're like, nah, I don't want to go to work today. It's never because they feel underappreciated or like they're being taken advantage of or anything like that.
It's a lazy day, happens.
Lazy days happen.
Okay, chef. So I love that your friend is somebody that definitely kind of helped you not allow yourself to give up. I think everyone's been there at some point. One of the reasons that I love to do the podcast is because, there's the solution to your problem that you solved or your challenges, anyone that's listening, whether they're deciding to open up their own restaurant or another aspiring chef or somebody in a completely different industry, it's usually, there's a mindset that is an undercurrent from all these podcasts that I've done up to this point. That is something that hopefully can inspire them, or something that somebody else can adopt if maybe they already have a successful business and they still feel like giving up a little bit. So I appreciate that very much. Another thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned is getting a kitchen off the ground is a staggering feat. I've opened up probably, over time, now that I think I lost count the other day, I was thinking about it, but I've been at this for about almost 2 decades, and I did it busser, runner, expo, server, and then I cut my teeth in management like 6 years ago out in the Bahamas and over at Baja Mar Resort. But it's a ton of work and it's a lot of stress. And the only thing I've seen on TV, I'm not sure if you had a chance, but The Bear. Have you seen
Yeah.
that on Hulu?
I've watched season 1.
It's the thing I've seen closest that represents that a little bit.
I watched season 1, which I really enjoyed. I wish they would have ended it at the end of season 1. I won't go into how much I do not like season 2 or 3, but yes, I would say that show really, I felt like, conveyed that feeling of stress and anxiety that you get working in the kitchen, especially in a high-end kitchen and a busy kitchen. The more successful you are, the more pressure there is on you because, we did this great food. Now we have to continue to be even better because we want people to come in through the door. My advice would be like, don't get into this business because you want to be rich and famous, because that's the wrong reason. Because very few of us are rich and very few of us are famous. You will always worry about money unless you have some sort of angel investor with very, very, very deep pockets. Money is always going to be on your mind. Talking to some friends the other day, and it's like, I'd like to wake up one day and not worry about money. I haven't not worried about money in 10 years. Maybe for us, or at least for me, maybe there was a little bit of revenge success in there somewhere. Like, I'm not going to like close this restaurant down because I know there's some people out there who really want me to, and we get joy from us failing. So we're to make sure that doesn't happen. And then, I used to joke around with our customers because they would be like, what's next? And I'd be like, well, once the restaurant turns 10, we're going to shut it down and I'm going to move to Portugal, which was always a joke. And they would get like visibly angry. Well, where am I going to go eat? I'm like, okay. I'm like, sorry. So, whenever I've had those moments where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm exhausted, or I'm tired of worrying about finances, or, right after the pandemic, staffing was such a pain. I would think about them. And I would think about our customers and, how loyal they are and how much they'd like to come and hang out with us and eat. And those were all like big motivators to just continue and figure out the problem and continue to cook and keep our doors open.
Chef, you said the wrong reason here of opening up a restaurant. And I think that's a universal lesson. I think that applies to everything,
Yeah.
any business that you decide to get into. I mean, there's some people that say, follow your passion. And some others, when I say like Professor Galloway, he says, listen, you can follow your passion, but you have to do something that makes you money. However, you still have to like what you're doing. You have to find like the love in some way or somehow. If you just do something that you hate for money or fame, it's not going to happen.
And sadly, there's a lot of people out there who have jobs that they don't really love, but it's their job and it's what they do. Even on the worst of days, I'll come home and I'll be like, I'm lucky because I get to do what I'm truly passionate about for a living, and not a lot of people can say that. It's an honor to be in that position. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I've met a lot of young cooks, and they're like, "Oh, I'm doing this because I want to be famous or I want to be wealthy." And I was like, "Well, good luck, buddy. Good luck.
Right.
Because if you're not doing it because you love food and you love to feed people, then you're not going to be very happy at this."
And chef, how many other chefs do you know of that might have inspired you in the past that are, making it big on TV or whatever that, started off, they failed multiple restaurants, multiple businesses, multiple failures, and then they just kept going. And now they're where they are now.
Personally, chef that I worked for, I'm sure I could probably call just about every other chef that I worked for in the beginning of my career, and I'm sure they would all say me. It's hard. It's a hard life. You have to give up a lot of your own personal time, with your friends, time with your family. But the reward that I receive when people come in and here's the regular who's been in since the day we opened, bringing their grandkids in now or whatever. It's just such a joy, and it's just I can't really put into words how grateful we are. We have a very amazing group of loyal customers who just love us. During the pandemic, after I always knew, oh, people like the restaurant. They enjoy coming in here, they like it. But I didn't quite realize how much that place meant to people until the pandemic hit. And after the first round of stimulus checks went out, we started to receive these letters from some of our regulars. And in the letters were their stimulus checks. And they would say,
Wow.
"We don't need this," or "We're okay. We want you to take this and apply it towards the restaurant because we want to make sure that our favorite place is open when life gets back to normal." And I mean, that's
That's
I still
great. I
get
love
choked up
that.
when I think about it because that's the moment when I realized, wow, this place is very important to everybody.
What an honor.
Yeah, yeah.
What a reward. That's vindicating, and that's
And
great. I haven't heard that one yet. That's the first one, chef.
yeah,
That's
and
very
it
cool.
makes us, gives us that drive.
I'd be
It makes
moved as
that,
well.
yeah, it makes that drive even stronger. It's like, okay, these people have given us their money, not like the money that they come in
Yeah.
and spend here. They have sent us their checks because they want us to succeed and be here. So it was quite an honor.
That's fantastic, chef. Something you mentioned, chef, about, just even that of folks, I haven't heard that one yet. That's very inspiring that anyone to send you their check
We had
or their
about 10
pandemic
groups
check,
of
but
customers do that.
that's big.
Yeah.
That's big. And that's love and loyalty. That's something
Mhm.
that people are always going to come back for you.
Yeah.
That's something that's how I feel like that you did it right or that you're doing it right up until this point. But something I touched on with another chef James Gopp, he's from Heirloom Tomato out in Massachusetts. And it was very cool that during the pandemic, they had the essential workers and whatnot. And it was wrong. I mean, how that entire thing, I feel like went wrong for the country. We lost a lot of people.
We
That
could
was
have a
the
whole
most
nother
important thing.
episode just talking about the
Oh
pandemic.
my God, yeah. We in Las Vegas is an international hub
Yeah.
for tourism. So we were the canary in the cage. We went out, closed first, closed longest, hit us hardest because we're like the spine of this economy is tourism. But one thing that was learned by everyone, I feel like over the pandemic, the 2 years that everything was either shut down or 50% or whatever, the city coming down and hitting people with
Yeah.
fees or whatever because they didn't put a mask on, which is ridiculous. At this point, it doesn't even make any sense because we know it's not true.
Yeah.
What people learned was that, restaurants and places where people go congregate and people go break bread and drink wine and talk with their friends or their family or their loved ones or go on a date with their wife or their husband, restaurants are essential. I mean, it's been since since the beginning of civilization that in society birthed the first restaurant or restaurants or places to go drink or have a drink. It was a place where we need that connection. Human connection is the number one thing. I mean, I think honestly, there's a meme out there saying the most harmful thing to another human being is a human being, but the most helpful and important thing to another human being is a human being. You know, if you surround yourself with the right people, you know, and so we learned how important restaurants really were.
I
So,
mean,
you
if
know,
you
your
look at
story of telling us,
history, um, like the French Revolution and the resistance during World War II, a lot of big pivotal historic moments started off in like meetings in little restaurants and cafes and bars. I am a very social person. I like to be around people. But I hadn't realized how important it was to me and to my mental health on a day-to-day basis until the pandemic closed. The first day we did our to-go, I was like, I'm going to take it out to the cars. And I would go out and I was able to do the first three. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore because I would get so sad knowing that these people weren't going to be able to come into the restaurant. And, it was very depressing going into that space day in and day out and not have anybody else in there other than myself. My father and his wife were stuck in the US from Venezuela that whole year. So they were coming in and washing dishes for us, but it was me, one other cook, and my dad and his wife. And it was just so depressing going into that place day in and day out without anybody else in there. A lot of us need human connection, and it kind of recharges our battery.
yeah, it's something that we all need. There's unfortunately, we lost folks to suicide because they were not able to get in contact with their loved ones, you know,
Mm.
and you can see the yearning that we all had. I know I had it because
Yeah.
I don't go out and like party much, but one thing that I pay through the nose for is good food. And in Las
Yeah.
Vegas, we have the good fortune of having so many good restaurants out here. And that's something that we missed like crazy. When they lifted the mandate, everything was slammed. Every restaurant was packed. People were out and happy to see each other's faces, you know, and it's just out of safety. We thought that we were doing the right thing just to keep others safe. You know, we don't want anyone to get sick
Yeah.
or worse. So it was just, and having that, like that rush, I think, I worked a festival out here. It's called Life is Beautiful. And it was the first festival that was a festival or a rave, if you will, that since the pandemic hit Las Vegas, and it was beyond sold out. I mean, people were sneaking in and jumping over barriers just to be part of it. It was like a fever pitch almost
Yeah.
of how badly people were itching to come out and just have a drink outside. Like, can you please serve me this dish, this delicious dish I come
Please.
for all the time?
And just to be around
There's
other
nothing you could
humans.
do. The only thing you could do when you were quarantined was get groceries, I think was the only thing. Go to the hospital if you
Yeah.
were in trouble. And that was it. You couldn't do anything else. You couldn't. That's why Amazon exploded and like
Yeah.
people were
Yeah.
just blowing through their
Yeah.
money the checks online because there's nothing else.
We had a little, what we used to call a COVID bubble. So there was a customer who had been coming to the restaurant since she started coming the second week we were open. I had never really interacted with her other than like hello, hello. And then in 2019, I finally walked up to her one day and was talking, and I just assumed that she was a traveler. And she's like, no, she's like, I teach over at Marquette. I'm an English teacher, and she actually we become really good friends. She went on the trip to Portugal with us recently. She's actually my co-author on the cookbook. But she then started once we closed down and we're doing only to go. She would come in once a week, and finally, I think after week 3, I was like, "Do you want to be part of our COVID bubble?" So she would come to the restaurant almost every day and sit there with us. I had a couple, having my dad and his wife here and living with me. I wasn't as isolated as most people were, but it was tough. It was tough. Let's hopefully we don't have to go through that again.
No,
Fingers
from
crossed.
your mouth to God's ears.
Right.
I never have to do anything like that. So, Chef, if I can touch back on when you were having like that moment of doubt, right, and your friend did not let you quit. Can you tell us a little bit specifically about what the mindset, if you can recall, what was that moment where you're like, screw this, I'm gonna make this happen. Besides just the phone call, something inside of you had to
Well, I mean, it
get like
was like,
spurred or something that kind of changed your mind a little bit.
I think I love what I do, and I can't imagine changing careers, and doing something different. I knew how much the restaurant meant to other people. This was probably right after we got those checks from people. What I said earlier, a little bit of that revenge success maybe. And
There it is.
yeah, I mean, knowing that I didn't want to really go work for anybody else, I think it was like a mixture of a lot of different feelings, and not feeling like there's just another other option. Like literally, there was no other option. It's kind of like when I moved to San Francisco when I was 24. I had never been there. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job. I just hopped on a bus and landed in San Francisco 3 days later. And I remember getting off the bus and it being, it's San Francisco, it's foggy, it's cold, it's raining. And I'm like, what have I done with my life? But again, there was no choice. I'm here. This is what I have to do. So I would say that was the driving force. Like I just had no choice. I had to figure out a way to keep that restaurant open for a myriad of reasons.
That's funny that you say that, chef, because most of the time, what I've gotten from other chefs or other people in different industries is it's that this, like, screw this, I'm gonna make sure that this, like, they just will it into existence. But what you're saying actually does make a lot more sense, and I think it's more common. I think for the folks that have some similar stories when it comes to lack of options, maybe sometimes it just life puts you in a where you need to be. Like it's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, this is the only way I can only go up, right? Essentially, right? So that's something, or the fear of alternative, rather.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it might have been easier to just be like, I'm done. I'm going to shut this place down. We had a good run. We were up 5 years. We'll figure something else out. I could have easily gone and worked for somebody else, but I just really felt like there was no other choice. Like we have to do whatever we have to do to keep this place open.
Love it.
I'm glad.
So, Chef, let's switch gears a little bit here. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry the folks in Milwaukee. I can promise you that. Chef, so let's talk about the future a little bit here.
Sure.
So Amalinda has reached an incredible milestone. What is the one thing that you're currently most excited about for the next 12 to 18 months or maybe 3 to 5 years at Amalinda? And why is that the focus right now?
Cool. Well, I'm excited to see the cookbook come to fruition and be published. If anybody's worked on a cookbook before, it is an intensely stressful project to have. I'm very lucky that I have a co-writer who's just amazing, and she loves to do all the things that I do not enjoy. So we make a really good team. So I'm excited to see that. As I said, we don't have plans to open anything else. I think in the next 12 months, we'll take another staff trip. I think this time it's going to be to Seville and Granada. So for those who I'm not sure know, this past Thanksgiving, I took the whole staff of the restaurant to Lisbon for a week. They had never been to Portugal. My chef de cuisine had never been out of the country before. And it was such an amazing experience for all of us. It was such a privilege and such an honor for me to be able to be in a spot in my life where I can do this for them and to see them eat and experience the culture and meet people and figure out and learn why we do what we do at Amalinda. It was just, you can't put a price on that. So, the next trip is going to be Spain and Portugal, which they're all very excited about. We've got some collaboration dinners we're going to do with other chefs. We're going to go cook at a couple farms. At some point this year, I believe it's June, I've actually been invited to go back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where I was born, to cook at a farm there. And that'll be the first time in my 30-some years of being a chef that I've been invited to come back and do a dinner like that. So I'm very much excited about that. It's going to be kind of like a homecoming, and it'll be nice to have my family there. But no great lofty aspirations, just to continue to come in and put out great food and make people happy.
That's actually sounds like a dream, actually, Chef. Coming a homecoming after the success.
Yeah. It's they reached out to me last year, and I was just like, I couldn't say yes fast enough. So I'm excited. I'll bring the whole kitchen team with me. So excited to take them back to my hometown. They'll get to meet my family. Although I think most of them met them this past summer when they were all out here for our 10th year anniversary. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to what this year has.
Excellent, Chef. And so finally, for the entrepreneurs, aspiring chefs and leaders listening right now, what is the single most important piece of advice you can give them from your extensive experience in the culinary world?
I would say don't.
Or your younger self even.
Yeah. Oh, what I told my
Go
younger
back 20 years.
make better choices. But I would say for somebody who's getting ready to start their own business or go into this, yes, be concerned with what the customer thinks or what the customer says, but don't let that be the driving force behind what you do. Always be super secure and confident in your skills and what you do. And don't be afraid to ask for help or admit that you don't know everything. Amalinda is as good as it is because it's a collaborative experience. I don't walk in there every day with this mentality that I'm like, I know all the answers because I'm the one that signs the check, or every idea that comes out of my mouth is the right one because I signed the checks. Be flexible, first of all. And, there was a vision for Amalinda when we opened. Is it the same? Did it work out exactly that way 10 years later? Probably not. You have to adapt, and you have to be willing to maybe change some of your perspectives and some of your ideas and some of the things you want to do. But I would say the biggest one is don't be afraid to ask for help. Surround yourself with people who might know a little bit more about certain things than you do. It's a team effort. If you treat this endeavor as a team effort, it's you're going to be successful. And it's hard to do, especially when you're the one that has all the responsibility. God forbid, restaurant closes tomorrow. they can go off and they find new jobs, and the owner or the proprietor is the one stuck with the bag of debt. But just and make the people who work for you feel appreciated and like they're heard.
Chef, that's a truly powerful note to end. Excuse me, Chef, that's a truly powerful note to end the show on. I know we're out of time for the audience, but personally fascinated by the efficiency and unique operation flow you've cultivated at Amalinda. I just want to thank you for your time. And if you have one more time, if you can tell us one more time where folks can find Amalinda in Milwaukee and online.
Well, first of all, thank you for the invite. It's always fun to come on these programs and chat with like-minded people. Amalinda, they can find amalinda.com on the web. On Instagram, it's at Amalinda MKE. They can find my personal Instagram is at Chef Greg Leon. And then we're at 315 East Wisconsin Avenue in the heart of downtown Milwaukee. And you can find us on Open Table if you want to make a reservation. We're open Wednesday through Saturday, 5 to 9. So we have a very cushy schedule. And there's a very short window for people to be able to go in there. So if you're thinking about coming to see us, make a reservation.
Absolutely. I mean, for anyone listening right now, think about it. Folks, during their pandemic, were sending their checks to this gentleman just because they didn't need the money and they wanted this place to be open when the world came back to life. That's a huge honor. Like that's one of the biggest compliments, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
Well,
for Chef Gregory Leon, my name is.
Sorry,
that's cool. I've not heard that one yet. That's the first time, Chef. That's a huge compliment.
Thank you.
For Chef Gregory Leon, my name is Jonathan. This has been the VELSTRAT Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good one.
Talk to you Monday.